We are back again here on the Cowboys Report as Dallas has signed a second UFL player. Earlier today, as we broke down early this morning, the Cowboys added linebacker Willie Harvey. Now they have announced that signing and the addition of former first-round pick Gareon Conley, who began his career with the Las Vegas Raiders, played some for the Texans, had a really bad ankle injury, and then got a second life, or third life maybe, in the UFL. He is a former first-round pick. It is a player the Cowboys liked coming out of Ohio State and had a relatively solid season for the DC Defenders this past UFL campaign. Also does have a tie to the Cowboys organization. Paul Gunther, the current Cowboys defensive assistant, kind of the run game coordinator, if you will. He was the Raiders defensive coordinator back when they had Gareon Conley. So there is some knowledge and some connection on that front. This is the second breaking news video of the day. The stuff we had planned will go out tomorrow and later on in the week. We'll have multiple videos that you were already going to get to. It just so happened the second video today ended up being a breaking news edition. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Gareon Conley has had a really interesting path, and I would say frustrating, disappointing path even for him especially. First-round pick out of Ohio State the same year Marshawn Lattimore was coming out. Spent a year and, I guess, 2.5 years with injuries with the Las Vegas Raiders. Gets flipped over to the Houston Texans in a trade. Never recovers from a really bad ankle injury. There was a surgery. The rehab didn't go well. I think there were additional surgeries. There was nerve damage that I believe he had to deal with as well. That was one report that came out of it. He might have had some issues with the Texans training staff as part of that whole thing there. Gets a shot with the DC Defenders and did a pretty good job this past year, enough to get him signed by Dallas. Of note, it is another example of what I call the Will McClay special. A former high-round pick. The Cowboys liked him coming out, and they're giving him a shot. Why not? In training camp, they still have multiple open roster spots, by the way. In fact, that was the year, remember, it was the Taco Charlton draft, and they took Chidobe Awuzie and Jordan Lewis, both of whom were much better than Conley was in the NFL. He could have been the pick if he had fallen down to the Cowboys a few picks, or that would have been in the cards for Dallas. What's kind of funny now is the Cowboys have had 4 different 2017 first-round picks on their roster. 2 of them currently. Malik Hooker at number 15 overall. Taco Charlton at 28th, of course. Gareon Conley, 24. Takk, McKinley spent some time briefly with Dallas previous years. Probably thinking something similar if you're lucky, impact-wise for Conley. I think that's a fair expectation there. So about over 12% of that draft has been on Dallas, which is kind of funny. So give me your one-word reaction to signing Gareon Conley. Good, bad, some other adjective altogether. It is the pinned comment on today's show. The ad comes on YouTube. That's just fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. My one-word reaction is depth. I think that is a fair expectation to have for Gareon Conley. Yeah, he's a bigger name than Willie Harvey is. Nobody thinks he's going to start. Yes, there's the first-round pedigree, there was a reason why he was a first-round pick. I also think we should just treat him as a UFL player, because that's what he is. The expectation should be low. Maybe he can flash some in training camp, carve out a practice squad spot, fight for that CB 5, 6 spot, whatever. I believe there are 4 roster locks at corner. It's Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson. Those guys aren't going anywhere. We'll mention C.J. Goodwin, who will probably begin the year on the practice squad and be called up as a game day promotion and stuff as mainly a core special teamer. And then it's an open battle. Josh Butler, who was a UFL player last year, which I think people tend to forget about, by the way. He came over and stuck around in the Cowboys practice squad the entire season. Nashawn Wright, former third-round pick, has not lived up to expectations. Eric Scott, who was a heavy Dan Quinn influence pick. He's very much a trade candidate, by the way, and maybe even a cut candidate if he doesn't impress in camp. Israel Mukuamu, that kind of hybrid nickel safety or corner safety, where does he end up playing? So all of those guys are fighting for maybe 2 spots at the cornerback area. Conley will compete there. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee. And I hope we don't expect him to suddenly live up to the first round expectations. That race done been run, it's over. Can he carve out an NFL roster spot? That's possible. More on this to come, but since Conley was a first-round pick, you can get the 2024 version of the Cowboys draft hat. There are older versions, by the way, if you go look around on the Fanatics site. Simply go to chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat to find your preferred style today. Different brims and caps. It's fitted and adjustable. Kind of the smoke gray, I think they called it, and the regular navy. They are going for a little 3D effect on the logo. Easier to see it on the darker navy hat than the gray hat, so I would just go check out the URL, chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat, so you can actually zoom in and get a better feel for it than just looking at it on a YouTube page on your app or phone or whatever. Now, Gareon Conley was inconsistent this past year for the DC Defenders. He still played fairly well, enough for... There were other teams that had some interest too, by the way. But he allowed 55.3% completion rate, not too bad. 275 yards, not too bad either. The 4 touchdowns are high. That's the big thing. 4 in 7 games, it's not great. It would have been under 500 yards if you prorate the season out. Also had 2 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. So there were flashes of Conley's, former first-round talent, etc. Conley's career just never got going the way it was supposed to go. He never had the health and the consistency and the playing time that we all know he wanted to have. He missed a bunch of time in his rookie year, 2017, due to a shin injury, was healthy in 2018, didn't have the greatest season, a little high on touchdowns again, but also had 3 interceptions. Like, okay, got a big-time breakout year in 2019. Ended up not being the case. He had a neck injury early on. Eventually came back and then was traded to Houston for a 3rd-round pick. Ends up kind of fading out in Houston. He had a bunch. That ankle injury was really, really bad. Something he consistently struggled with. Was out of football in 2020 as well. Was on the team but didn't play because it was on IR. Doesn't come back in 2021. Signs at the end of the calendar year of 2023 with the Defenders and has a better season that 2023-2024 campaign. I don't think he's going to be a superstar caliber player, but this was a 6', 195, 33-inch arm and 4.44 speed guy. The athletic stuff was good and really good. It's probably not the same. He also turns 29 at the end of June, so he's still fairly young. So prediction time. Will Gareon Conley make the Cowboys roster this season? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. This is 2 of the 4 players that we know about that the Cowboys worked out who have signed. Gareon Conley, the corner, over DeAndre Baker. I'm not overly surprised by that one. And Willie Harvey over Noah Dawkins. That one I don't think is a surprise to... If you've been subscribed, you knew we talked about that. Harvey and Conley were the ones they had interest in. So of those 2 moves, which one do you think was the better signing for Dallas? You have to pick one. You can't say none like a coward. Or both like a coward. GC for Gareon Conley, WH for Willie Harvey. I'd actually probably give the edge to Willie Harvey. And the only reason why I'm doing that is because I think it's an easier path to the rush. So I'm kind of answering it as, who do I think is more likely to make the 53-man team? I think Harvey's path is easier given the linebacker depth. You've got 4 spots locked in there. I think you carry 5 or 6 at minimum. And the other guys competing don't have the same investment, pedigree, etc. that Conley's going to face at the cornerback spot. Make no mistake, both guys' paths to the roster are via special teams. Mike Zimmer will have just as much influence on if the Cowboys keep Willie Harvey and or Gareon Conley on their roster as Bones Fossil will. Both those guys are going to have to prove they can help out as, the 47th man on the game day active roster and be a core special teamer. It's not what Gareon Conley thought he was going to be when he began his NFL career all those years ago as a first-round pick out of Las Vegas. And I'll also make sure the Cowboys have open roster spots. Do not sleep on that part. I did go back and look, by the way, as we wrap up here momentarily, at my pre-draft notes. A long, long time ago, before we really got going even on the draft side of it here at Chat Sports. We were live for it. Good size and length, playmaker, lined up inside and outside, did need work in the running game. I had a first-round grade, but it wasn't on my board because if you remember, there was the accusations Conley was facing pre-draft that he was not only cleared of, the woman who had accused him of rape was found liable in a civil suit for malicious prosecution. It was like a $300 like punishment, I think is what it was, still of like, hey, he's not actually going after the money. It was more, symbolic than anything. He was cleared on that all the way through. We'll see if he can make the most now of his third, I guess, NFL chance with Gareon Conley signing with the Dallas Cowboys.